The year is 2008. Everybody's wearing apple-bottom jeans, boots with the fur, listening to Justin Timberlake on friggin' $400 iPods while having weird ons for vampires and Chuck Norris jokes. One day my friend Mark hits me up on MySpace because he couldn't reach me on AOL Instant Messenger. His dumb Grey's Anatomy watching parents just took out a predatory subprime loan on this big ol' house in suburbia, and he invites me over to play Gears of War, or Halo, or some other Manifest Destiny and space game where a big strong marine kills the weird looking aliens. They're fighting them on Mars, so they don't need to fight them at home. USA! USA! So after a few hours of pressing the triangle button during cutscenes, I start to get bored, and I ask Mark if he has any RPGs, because I like myself some strategery. Sure, says Mark, we could play Fallout, or The Witcher, or Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion featuring Patrick Stewart. Ew! No, I don't want to play an RPG where I'm some Viking dude stumbling around a scary pitch-black cave fighting bats and spooky skeletons with rusty swords. I don't care if you get to punch rats with Jean-Luc Picard. It's not my bag, man.
A barrier Blastia? Oh yeah, they were protecting the world from the Adephagos.
See, this is my bag. I don't want American garbage, I want Japanese garbage. And as it turns out, there was a game that would have satiated my JRPG craving, inexplicably released only on the Xbox 360 at the time. But sadly, Mark didn't have it, and it wouldn't be until 2019 that it actually got ported to a console I did own, the Nintendo Switchies. And that game is Tales of Vesperia. Now, the reason I gave this long-ass lead-in was to simply emphasize how long ago this game came out, and how long I've been waiting to play it. And yes, I know it's not 2019 anymore. I had other games to get through first. You try finding time for video games when you have a full-time job, and a wife, and a kid to take care of, and a house to maintain, and bills to pay, and oh my god, I got another gray hair since I began this sentence. So with all this waiting, it was with cautious optimism that I approached Tales of Vesperia. It got good reviews when it first came out, and is selling for like $8 on eBay, so that's a good sign, right? In the world of Vesperia, there's things called Blastias, which are basically batteries that store power, which are used for all sorts of things. Blastia are great for everyday life stuff like providing lighting in homes. Blastia could also be used in fantastical ways, like erecting giant magical barriers around cities. They could also be attached to people's arms or weapons to make them better fighters. I genuinely like that cities have barrier Blastias, providing a logical explanation for why monsters don't just wander into the nearest town and eat people, which is a thing that somehow doesn't happen in other RPGs. In the capital city of Zophius, a Blastia that filters the community fountain breaks, and Yuri Lowell, local bad boy with great hair, goes on an adventure to repair the Blastia so his neighborhood could have clean water to drink. So, you know, right off the bat, this isn't exactly the beginning of Lord of the Rings. There are more epic themes that gradually develop, but for now, Yuri's gotta go replace his Brita filter. Doesn't that sound like a fun adventure? I'm not gonna lie, if you played Tales of Symphonia or some of the other games in the series, you probably also had high expectations for the storyline and the world building. Lower those expectations right now. Be like how society treats dads who are taking care of their kids without the mom present. Oh, are you babysitting today? Are you Mr. Mom today? Yeah, I get it, old lady at the park. You grew up with an absentee father, and seeing a dad do the bare minimum is blowing your mind. Oh, that's where my soapbox went. But Vesperia isn't just a story about the importance of not drinking nasty dookie water. We're Zaphius anyways, Flint, Michigan. It's also a story about justice. But we'll get into that in a minute. Yuri begins looking for a man named Mordio, who apparently was working on the water Blastia before it broke. This search leads him to the upper quarter, where all the richy riches live. And he meets Princess Estelle, your typical benevolent but naive princess who's just looking for an excuse to get out of the castle she's cooped up in and explore the outside world. Much like Rapunzel from Tangled, or Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, or Shelley from My Basement. She says she's looking for a knight named Flynn, and this brings us back to the topic of justice and what that means for different people. For traditional white knights like Flynn, that means working within the law, standing for truth, justice, and the, Terca Lumeris way. Yes, that's the name of the world in the game, and yes, it's only ever mentioned like 3 times in its 60-hour runtime. Flynn is a knight in the Imperial Guard and has a very by-the-books view of justice. We later find out that he and Yuri used to be childhood friends, and Yuri was even a knight alongside Flynn for some time before he decided to go solo. Yuri wasn't able to tolerate all the corruption he saw within the knights and the Empire, so he decided to go full Ron Swanson libertarian and fully dedicate himself to his small neighborhood, the lower quarter, because it's easier to make effective change within a small tight-knit group than, say, a massive worldwide government. Imagine that. Flynn, on the other hand, believes strongly in changing the system from the inside, and this fundamental disagreement led to a rift between the friends. Basically, Flynn is MLK and Yuri is Malcolm X. Flynn is Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yuri is Ahsoka Tano. Flynn is prim and proper with his Boy Scout haircut, and Yuri grows out his hair long because he doesn't give a f***. And I joke about the Water Blastia story being shallow, but the deeper point of it is to establish Yuri as a man of the people. A man who cares about social inequality. The upper class don't give a flying frick about the gross pories having to drink tainted water from their broken filter, and the Imperial Guards offer no help at all. Yuri's over here with Mike Myers being like, the Empire does not care about lower quarter people. And guess what? He's right, they don't care. And Yuri's quest to find the Water Blastia is really Yuri's quest to stop injustice with his own hands, because the system certainly won't provide any justice. This is great and all, but spoiler alert, the second half of the story largely drops this plotline and pivots to a million other side topics that kind of come out of nowhere, like Entelechea, or Apatheia, or La Brea, or Peter Parker's girlfriend Zendaya. Anyways, Yuri agrees to let Estelle join him, he looking for Mordio and she looking for Flynn. There's also some extra story beats here, like this Hot Topic shopping motherfucker who keeps stalking Yuri and trying to kill him, and these Three Stooges Imperial Guard motherfuckers trying to arrest Yuri for some bullshit. Look, there's a lot of things that happen in this 60-plus hour game, so consider this the abridged version. Don't believe me that certain plot points aren't important? Okay, let's go over Zaggy's role in the story. He shows up again, and they fight. He shows up some more, and they fight. Fight, 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 fight. Fight all day, and fight all night. Fighting so right, girl, you out of sight. And then he dies. Do we ever learn who he is or why he's obsessed with Yuri? No. The game gives no explanation for this character at all or why we should care about him. Look, I'm going to be frank here for a minute. There's a lot I like about this game, but the story is dog shit. I'm just going to spoil that for you right here, right now. It actually is worse than dog shit, and I mean it. Go outside and dig around in the grass for some dog shit, and then try to come up with a story about how that dog got there and what's going to happen to it next. I guarantee whatever you come up with will be a better story than Tales of Vesperia. In fact, for the majority of the game, there is no bigger picture. There's themes, like the themes of justice I talked about, but no bigger picture. We don't really know anything about Terca Lumeris or its history. We don't know anything about the Empire, or who the good guys are, or who the bad guys are. We're just constantly chasing after MacGuffins. And for now, that's fine because it's early in the story, but trust me, it gets pretty old 20 hours into the game when you still don't know who the bad guy is. Is it this Sephiroth-looking bastard? Or is it this Sephiroth-looking bastard? Or is the true villain, like in every Tales game, mankind's inherently destructive nature? Spoiler alert, it's that one. So yeah, the story sucks. But you know what doesn't suck? The graphics. Vesperia, in my opinion, is by far the best looking Tales game. The watercolor, cel-shaded aesthetic give it a really cozy RPG feel, which is appropriate for the relatively lighthearted story. Lighthearted if you forget about all the murder and slavery. Also, it strikes just the right balance of realism for the character models. Tales of Symphonia was way too chibi looking, and Tales of Arise leans too hard into realism while keeping the anime look, which just slides into Uncanny Valley and makes everyone look like waxy action figures. Then there's the in-between games like Zestiria and Xillia that didn't do anything remarkable with the character design or graphics at all. Why does this newer game look like it should belong on a PS2? Vesperia's design and art style definitely holds up, and the definitive edition looks great in HD. Hopefully in the future we could get back to the cel-shaded cartoon look and further away from whatever the hell this is. In the Koi Woods, our party meets a boy named... this freaking wig is so itchy. Oh my god. In the Koi Woods, our party meets a boy named... who was recently excommunicated from his guild. In the world of Vesperia, guilds are basically unions, small collectives that all work together, share resources, and take and give according to their needs. Doesn't sound so bad, does it? Well, surprise, you're a communist. Guilds are, for the most part, at odds with the Empire, and live outside their rules and regulations. This will play a larger role later in the story, but for now, all you need to know is that Carol was kicked out of his guild for not being a particularly good monster hunter. Look at that sword. Leave the house with that thing? What is this, baby's first monster hunting sword? Now, a lot of people seem to hate Carol, and I can understand why on a surface level. People love to hate the annoying kid character and things, but I don't think it's fair to put Carol in that category. He isn't a know-it-all smug prodigy, he isn't a whiny, complacent brat, and he's not an unrelatable savant that somehow saves the world by himself. Now this is pod racing. Whee! Carol is just a young man trying to find his way in the world and gain acceptance from his peers. I don't know, maybe I'm biased. My son is 2 now, and I think I could tolerate this sort of character archetype more than I probably would have before having a kid. Carol's cool, and all the haters can suck this egg. Bear. I also really love Yuri and Carol's friendship in particular that blooms over the course of the story. Yuri treats Carol almost like a little brother or a son, giving him encouragement and treating him like an adult, which challenges him to mature and to push himself past everyone else's low expectations. The overall storyline of Tales of Vesperia may be dog but at the very least, the relationships between the main characters are solid. Before moving on, maybe now would be a good time to talk about the rest of our party, now that we've spent some more time with them. Yuri is by far my favorite Tales protagonist, and I know that's not a super controversial hot take, like saying pizza is yummy or that the angry pirate is the best sex position. That's when you're about to and instead you your her eye, and then when she's half blind you kick her in the shin and she all over the Yuri is a badass, but not in the traditional way like a 30-something-year-old dad making a YouTube channel about video games. That's obviously our baseline for coolness. Yuri is a badass, I suppose, because he's a well-written, likable character who the player can look up to, but he's not without his faults, and he doesn't come off as, well, whatever the male equivalent of a Mary Sue is. Gary Stu, I guess. Yuri is a wise ass without being cruel. He's encouraging to others without being condescending. He's self-deprecating without being a schmuck. He's laid back without being lazy. He's altruistic without having a savior complex. Whenever I think of a badly written character, I think of the film Odd Thomas. This movie is dumb and forgettable, but there's one bit that always stuck with me. The movie tries to get you to see Odd Thomas as this cool dude, so a character says, "Haha, you're so funny, Odd Thomas." Like the script is trying to trick you into thinking that he's funny because a character is literally telling you that he is. Well-written characters show, they don't tell. Nobody in this game ever says, "Haha, you're so cool, Yuri." We know Yuri is cool because he freaking demonstrates it. Estelle is a likable character, but about as shallow as Folsom Lake during the summer. Yep, I'm making some obscure references that only the other California girls and boys will appreciate. Top content creator over here, let's get that subscriber count up. I mean, her whole thing is that she's a curious, naive, benevolent, and seemingly simple-minded person whose role in the universe will be instrumental later in the story. But we've seen all of this before with Colette in Tales of Symphonia. In fact, she's basically the same character. Her innocence could lead to a lot of charming interactions, however. There's a running joke that occasionally after a battle, she'll try to high-five one of her teammates because she's just so stoked that they won. But this is a world where high-fiving isn't really a thing, so everyone just kind of plays along because her enthusiasm is so infectious. That's so cute! Honestly, as seemingly innocuous as these interactions are, they say so much more about Estelle and our party than hours of cutscenes and dialogue could. Hello? Lastly, there's the dog. Did I mention the dog? Repeat is Yuri's loyal, chain-smoking canine companion that's been with him since the start of the game. He really doesn't factor into the main storyline in any meaningful way. And what else is there to say about him? He's a dog. When I first played the game, I was confident that, surely a Tales game, which is a series known for interesting and well-developed main characters, would have a good reason for using up a slot on the roster for a regular-ass dog. Surely he'll have his own backstory where he was like a dude, and he was in a mine, and there was a cave-in, and he got trapped under a bunch of rocks, and there's a wizard nearby, And Rapide was like, "Save me, wizard." And the wizard was like, "I'll save you, but at a terrible price." And then he turns him into a dog. But no, Rapide is simply just a dog, and that's all there is to him. He doesn't get to talk or have a backstory. Kind of disappointing, right? Now you know our characters a little better, so let's mosey on back to the main story. Carol joins the party, and the three make their way to Halure, a town known for their big-ass tree. Can you drive a car through that tree, though? Didn't think so. West Coast, best coast. Halure's got nothing on the Golden State. That's another California reference. I think I'm doing this right. It's in this town that you learn two things. The first is how to synthesize items, which becomes a major gameplay mechanic. Basically, synthesizing allows you to create items using materials you win in battles. Synthesized items cost less than if you were to just buy them normally. Basically, it's, this pizza costs $10. Okay, or hear me out. I give you this dough, cheese, and tomato sauce, and you can make me a pizza for $5? Perfect explanation achieved. You also learn that Estelle has some crazy powerful healing. This is also the time of the game where you learn that Estelle has some This is also the part of the game where you learn that Estelle has some crazy powerful healing. This is also the part of the game where you learn that Estelle has some crazy powerful healing magic.
Success!
She brings the tree back to life, and the town is now in your party's debt. So why the hell am I still being charged for apple gels, huh? The town designs in Vesperia are pretty okay. They're all really small without a whole lot to do. Each town will have an inn and a vendor. The vendors' inventories expand as the story progresses, and for the most part, there aren't unique items for each town, so if you want to restock, it really doesn't matter which town you do it in. That definitely makes each town you enter feel superfluous. Compare that to Mel Tokyo from Tales of Symphonia. They had a coliseum, different segregated areas for the richies and the poories, a giant freaking castle to explore, a Buffalo Wild Wings, a Bed Bath & Beyond. But all that being said, the cities and towns look big and lively, with cascading staircases and rows of buildings and stuff in the background. It feels like there's a bigger city there, but you're simply exploring a small part of it. It gives the illusion of depth, like the School of Athens, or Jordan Peterson. In Aspio, Yuri and the gang meet a girl named Rita Mordio, who shares the last name of the man Yuri is looking for. Rita insists that someone must have stolen her identity, which is not a joke, Jim, and that she'd have no interest in breaking a Blastia, because as a researcher, her whole job is to study them. And also, she would never do that because she loves herself some Blastia. She even has a personal Blastia in her bedside drawer. Now that's dedication to science. Yuri doesn't buy her story, so she accompanies the party to some nearby ruins where she thinks the Mordio imposter might be. This is the first real dungeon of the game, and you're going to be fighting a lot of monsters, so let's talk about the combat in Vesperia. I know I've been pretty negative about this game's storyline so far, and if me being negative is your bag, then mazel tov, you've got a lot more to look forward to. But I did want to spend some time praising a part of the game that's really kick-ass. The Tales games all have an action RPG hybrid for combat. You could run around, you could attack, you could block, you could jump, you could use magic, and more, all in real time. In the pause menu, you could assign different spells and special attacks, called arts, to different buttons on your controller. Finally, an art degree that's actually paying off. For simpler enemies, you could get by with button mashing, but harder enemies and bosses require a lot of thought and consideration into what sort of spells you're going to be using, what items to bring into battle, and a dozen other factors. I really love the combat system in the Tales series, and it's a good thing too because there are a lot of battles. Technically, there are no random encounters as the enemies appear on the world map and in dungeons, and in theory, you could avoid touching them to trigger a battle, but good luck with that because either the enemies move faster than you or they're huge and blocking your path. If you just move over a little? Excuse me, can you please move? Honestly, my only real complaint here is that the battles happen way too often. I'm not a fan of grinding. Maybe when I was younger and I had that sort of time, but I work a 9 to 5 now, and I have a Netflix queue a mile long. Alright, time to finally watch House of Cards. Hopefully it's able to maintain its quality till the end. Just give me less but harder battles and more experience points. Is that so much to ask for, RPGs? Each Tales game, for the most part, improves on its predecessor. In the 2D Tales games of old, you could only slide to the left, slide to the right, and crisscross. But eventually, the marvelous third dimension made its appearance, and now you could run around the combat area in any direction you want. Any direction you want, girl! In Tales of Symphonia, a mechanic called Overlimit was added. Overlimit is basically the limit break from the Final Fantasy series, aka the more you fight, the more this gauge gets filled up. Once it's maxed out, you can make one of your characters go Super Saiyan for a while. In Vesperia, they added multiple levels of Overlimit, so you could go Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and the one where you're so powerful that you turn into monkey. And in Vesperia, they added Fatal Strikes, which allow you to instantly kill a weaker enemy if you attack it during a short window. This window only appears if you've used a certain type of art against that enemy enough times, so it's not as cheap and game-breaking as it may sound. Also, it doesn't activate half the time anyways. There's also a ton of variety in the types of weapons and skills you could use. We've got your swords, we've got your bows, we've got your close range and long-range attacks. We've also got some magic spells you could use, but why don't we keep that between us, huh? Another thing is that the other characters in your party are actually fun to play as for once. In Tales of Symphonia, Lloyd was really the only viable option. Genus, Colette, Rain, and the rest were way too slow and fragile, or just didn't feel satisfying to play as. Vesperia definitely fixed that. It's even fun to play as Rita, the magic user, and the magic user isn't really my first choice. But Rita can unleash some pretty devastating spells, and that sense of power is really satisfying. Unlimited power! Thank you, this has been Wes's Combat Corner. Anyways, at the end of the dungeon, Yuri and the gang learn of a vast criminal network of people stealing Blastias and selling them. A Blastia black market, if you will. And Rita decides she's going to join you so she could find out more about these Blastia thieves. Because, just a reminder, she is obsessed with Blastia. Hey Rita, if you love the vague and not very well explained concept of centralized magic energy sources so much, then why don't you just marry them already? Our party follows the Blastia thieves to the port town of Capua, where it's unusually stormy and rainy. And that's, you know, ruining the boat economy because these little dinghies can't launch off. Or the little baby boats afraid to sail in the scary storm. Our heroes discover that Capua's corrupt magistrate, Ragu, has messed with the town's weather-controlling Blastia and is intentionally keeping the ships in the bay. Why? Because he's a dick, I guess? We also find out that he's been kidnapping children and feeding them to the monsters in his basement. So, you know, messing with the town's weather just because is not unlikely. Our heroes stumble across this couple who've just been strong-armed by some of Ragu's thugs and are in dire straits as their young son was apparently just kidnapped by them. Then this happens.
Ow! What are you trying to do?
Yuri! My apologies, sir. Let me take care of that.
But I can't afford this treatment.
Don't you have something else to say?
Huh?
Jeez, you guys been robbed of your manners along with your money?
What the f***? Why is Yuri being so mean to this couple? He trips them, then demands that they say thank you for a healing spell they didn't ask for, while they're clearly distressed after just being roughed up by some other thugs. It's such a weird scene, I can't get over how out of place it is. You thought you were having a bad day? You haven't begun to have a bad day, motherfucker. But fortunately, Yuri and the party agree to go rescue their son. Before that could happen, Yuri goes down this dark alley and runs into none other than Flynn, who's not too happy to see his old friend has become a wanted fugitive. Look at this derpy wanted poster, I love it. Flynn is also investigating Ragu, but he's gotta do everything legally and he doesn't have a warrant to enter Ragu's murder mansion, so he's just gonna sit back and not do anything. Before entering the mansion, you'll run into this girl named Patty. Well, if you have the definitive edition, you do at least. She was a character added in newer versions of the game. I've only ever played the definitive edition, and it's pretty crazy to think she wasn't always playable. I mean, I get it, if you took her out of the story, the plot wouldn't really change at all, but you could say that for a lot of the characters in this game. Especially Zaggy. Zaggy is dumb. But I'm glad that they added her, because she's a 10 out of 10. Best pirate daughter of the year. Patty wants to pilfer some treasure from the magistrate, which is pretty bold considering Ragu has a death basement where he feeds children to monsters. That brings us to the topic of dungeons. The dungeons in this game suck major butt. They do get progressively better, but Ragu's mansion is just so badly designed. It's just a bunch of identical empty rooms full of monsters and treasure chests. What is this, some randomly generated AI dungeon shit? Was an artist paid to design this garbage? Boo! Boo, I say! After chasing Ragu out of his house, he tries to make his escape by sea. Yuri and the team discover that he's been in charge of the criminal conspiracy to steal Blastias, working together with a pirate named Barbos, who has a chainsaw arm, and that's just great. That's really cool. Unfortunately, Ragu and Barbos get away. But fortunately, Yuri is able to save the couple's child.
Hooray!
There's a few side plots that happen next that I'll just brush over because they don't have too much of an effect on the story. The party explores some ruins and runs into this dragon riding girl whose costume... well, let's just say that she probably didn't vote for Obama. This girl destroys the Blastia they were searching for, infuriating Rita in particular. The Dragon Rider's actions will make more sense later on, but for now, it's just kind of muddying up the plot with randomness. That's so random! It's around this time that Yuri asks Estelle why she's still journeying with the party despite already achieving her goal of meeting up with Flynn. I'm glad that the game eventually points out the fact that these characters shouldn't still be journeying together. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense. Carol is young, kicked out of his guild, and desperately seeking approval from his peers, so when your group of allies takes him in, naturally he's not going to want to leave. Estelle doesn't want to leave since she's been cooped up inside her palace her whole life and is enjoying seeing the outside world. That makes sense for these characters, but it's not very enriching story-wise. By contrast, the characters in Tales of Symphonia knew they were on a mission to save the world right from the start. They all have a personal stake in succeeding and a reason to be in the group, and they're all contributing to a larger overall narrative. In Vesperia, the characters are all simply there by happenstance, or because they want to be there, not because it serves a greater purpose. Like, Carol and Rita could be completely different characters with completely different motivations, and it basically wouldn't affect the main storyline or quests at all. And that doesn't mean that these characters aren't well written or likable. I like Han Solo, but if you were to insert him into Lord of the Rings, he'd better have a pretty good reason for being there. Our party decides next to go to Carol's home, Dawngrest, the city of guilds. Dawngrest is ruled by a guy named the Dawn. Barbos' crimes have furthered the tension between the guilds and the Empire. Flynn shows up to broker peace on behalf of the Empire, but he's framed for trying to kill the Dawn. Flynn is kept as a prisoner, and it's up to Yuri and friends to clear Flynn's name and avoid a full-blown war between the Empire and the guilds from escalating. It's around this time we meet Raven, a mysterious dude that the party has ran into a few times earlier in the game. Raven just sort of joins the group, and even the party members are like, "Why are you here? Why are you following us around and acting like you're one of us? You want to roll with us, SA?" Raven's actually a great character despite the crap he gets from the other party members. He's an archer, which brings an interesting dynamic in battles, but he also knows spells and can attack short range with a knife. He's kind of a wild card, and he's a lot of fun to play as. You almost feel sorry for the guy because everyone in the party is so mean to him for the longest time because they're suspicious of him, and understandably so. We eventually find out that he's working for the Dawn and was assigned to keep an eye on the group, so basically he's the babysitter. Yuri and company discover, to no one's surprise, that Ragu and Barbos are behind the plot to frame Flynn. They make chase when the Grand Dragon from earlier appears to blow up some more Blastias. Yuri teams up with her, and the two of them fly over to Barbos' fortress, aka Hal's moving asshole, because this stage is such a pain in the rear. The hooded figure takes off her clothes to reveal that she's a sexy elf mistress named Judith, or Judy for short. Judy doesn't share much about herself with Yuri, but they still get along well. She's a great match for our boy, as they have a great repartee together, and Yuri even comments that he's attracted to her, which is out of character for him. Judy is flirtatious back, but honestly, she seems like she'd be harder to mount than a penny farthing. I mean, did you see that hood she was wearing earlier? Is she really the kind of person you want to take to brunch to meet your parents? Anyways, together they manage to find and defeat Barbos, and Ragu is found and arrested not long after that. Yuri finally gets his Blastia back, and that pretty much wraps up what up till this point is the main story of the game. So, like, now what are we supposed to do? Well, one thing we haven't done yet is talked about the music and voice acting in Tales of Vesperia. Series regular Motoi Sakuraba returns to compose the score, and I gotta be honest, not really feeling this one. I mean, the soundtrack isn't bad per se, it's just incredibly forgettable. I generally like Sakuraba's music, and I don't necessarily blame him for this one. I mean, look at this dude's resume, he is keeping busy. The dude was composing 4 other soundtracks just that same year. So I feel like Vesperia's soundtrack just kind of got rushed out. I mean, this battle theme, for example, isn't bad, but wait, where have I heard that before?
Double dipped? What are you talking about? Just take one dip and end it.
As far as the voice acting goes, it's pretty good for a Tales game. Yuri's voice actor delivers his lines particularly well, and everyone else does a pretty good job too, especially considering they have to work with this flaming diaper can of a script. Not long after Ragu's arrest, he's released. He has a high position in the Empire, and due to his political sway, he's able to skirt punishment for his horrible, horrible crimes. This is the first time that the story actually made me feel something. You know, with my emotions. Ragu is a criminal, and it looks like the world of Vesperia, just like the real world, is unfair, and powerful people are immune to the law. Ragu seriously got released just like that? He didn't even have to announce he was running for president first? This brings us to perhaps my favorite scene in the entire game. This is the moment Yuri becomes a legend. Realizing that men like Ragu will never be punished for their crimes and will just go on to hurt more people, Yuri decides to take the law into his own hands, Batman style. Except, you know, the version of Batman where he breaks people's necks. Yuri corners Ragu in the dark of night and gives him the old stabby. Not sexual. Ragu's body is found in the river the next day, to mostly everybody's surprise. Yuri's like, that's weird. How did that get in there? I don't know. By the way, I want to point out a story beat that keeps happening throughout the game. You'll meet up with a character like Raven or Flynn. You'll meet up with characters like Raven or Flynn, and they'll say, let's not talk here, let's go to the inn, and the story will be locked behind the player spending money at the inn in order to proceed. This happens so many times, and it just gets more and more ridiculous. Hey guys, I've got something really important to tell you, but first, let's spend 400 gold at the local inn, even though it's like 10 in the morning. Can't we just have this discussion at like a coffee shop or a park or something? I'm going broke here. The next day, Dongrest is visited by this massive bird monster named Pharoah, who basically just flies in, tells Estelle that she sucks, and then flies off.
The insipid poison of this world must be purged.
Everyone's like, wow, that was rude. Wait, did that bird just talk? Needless to say, Estelle is pretty confused why this bird hates her so much, so for now, our team has a new objective. I've mentioned before that the storyline is mostly just a series of random tasks, but this heel turn with Pharoah was especially pushing it for me. I mean, really? They're on a quest to find a talking bird now? I guess that's more interesting than looking for a water filter, but again, we're pretty far into the story and we still don't know all about the larger narrative. Carol and Yuri decide that they're going to start their own guild, and they call it Brave Vesperia. Hey, he did it. He said the name of the thing. Along their search for Pharoah, our party arrives at the town of Halure. Something is off about this town, and it doesn't take long before they realize, uh-oh, it's being run with slave labor. The party needs to get past these guards, and so Carol dresses up all sexy-like to serve as a distraction. Weird, I didn't know Halure was so close to Vatican City. The party sneaks into this prison camp, and Yuri confronts the guy in charge, Capital Cummore, drives him off, and liberates the slaves. Next, the party arrives in the port town of Capua. It's a lot like Capua Nor, but it has these slides up on the hill, which, for God knows why, you can't ride. Why would you put a slide in a game and not let us ride it? What kind of torture is this? Our party charters a ship and sets sail across the ocean to look for the magical bird because I guess this is the plot now. Along the voyage, our party runs into multiple obstacles, like mermaids. Merman! Sorry, mermen. And ghost ships! Patty makes her reappearance here and temporarily joins the party. She has a really interesting moveset. Basically, she has 3 forms which she could switch between. One form that's good at close-range brawling, one that's good at magic, and one that's good at critical hits. She's a little overpowered, but considering she was a bonus character, it makes sense. We also learn that Patty is the granddaughter of Ifrid, an infamous pirate known for massacring people, and that relation has plagued Patty her whole life. Kinda reminds me of that time Ben Affleck was on that show where they explore your ancestry, and he learned that his family used to own slaves, and he was like, how about we don't do this anymore? Are you still rolling? Can we not do this anymore? Can we be done? Before leaving the pirate ship, they find this strange crystal, which seems important. Remember this for later. The party then sails to the Colosseum city of Nordopolica. They want to talk to the city leader, Bellius, because Raven has a letter to deliver on behalf of the Dawn. They're told that Bellius only sees people on the night of the full moon, which should raise some red flags for everyone that she's like a werewolf queen or something. So without much left to do in Nordopolica, Yuri and company decide to carry on their search for Pharoah and to come back to the Colosseum city on the night of the full moon. They journey next through this cave, which is making the party feel sick because it's saturated with air. That's air with an E. We've unfortunately arrived at the point of the game where I can't avoid talking about the lore of the world any longer. I know I said that there isn't much of a bigger picture in the story, but the truth is, that bigger picture is just so stupid, and I hate it so much. But I'll do my best to simplify it. Basically, air is everywhere. It's in your lungs, and it's in your hair. It's in this pear, and it's in this bear. And here is why you should care. Air is just an invisible natural thing, like atoms, that could be converted into energy by Blastia. Too much air in one place can be toxic, like in this cave. Fortunately, our party runs into this monster, who we later find out is an Entelechea, an ancient magical beast that can regulate air by gobbling it up. So this Entelechea is like, yummy air. Anyways, that's as much as I'm going to dig into the Entelechea and air for now, because it just gets a whole lot dumber and more convoluted later on. On the other side of this cave is an oasis town. The party spends the night there, and Estelle tells them that it's dangerous and that she needs to go find Pharoah on her own. Yuri and the rest insist on coming too, establishing that her struggles are their struggles. We got you, dog. Friendship. The next section of the game is a long trudge through the desert. I'm not particularly fond of desert missions in RPGs because they're kind of big and empty and boring, and it's way too easy to miss an important treasure chest. But good news, the Kogor Desert has all of that and a completely superfluous canteen-filling minigame where the prize is just not dying from heat stroke. Isn't that fun? At the end of the desert, you'll encounter an obligatory desert monster boss fight, and afterwards, the whole group is so exhausted that they all pass out one by one, like eating fettuccine alfredo and no water and running a marathon, kind of exhausted. When the party awakens, they're surprised to find themselves still alive and in a peaceful town called Yormgen. Right before they passed out, they got a glimpse of a large bird creature coming for them, and they also find feathers nearby. Everyone in the party is at a complete loss trying to figure out who saved them when their whole goal has been to find the lair of a giant bird.
I wonder what kind of praiseworthy fellow could cross such a toasty desert and save so many people.
Are you people seriously this f***ing stupid? Yormgen is a strange place. Despite being near a dangerous desert, there's no barrier Blastia. You'll run into this very suspicious looking dude named Duke. He's pretty important, but we won't really understand why for a while. Remember that crystal from the ghost ship? He takes that from you and destroys it. We later find out that this crystal is an apatheia, or a crap ton of air condensed into a little ball. Apatheia are incredibly powerful, but Duke subscribes to the idea that apatheia and Blastia are unnatural and harming the planet. The party argues with him for a bit, but they tread lightly because they're under the impression that he may have been the one that saved them from the desert. Yeah, he saved them from the desert, not a giant bird. Come on! As for Yormgen, we later find out that this whole town is in ruins now, and has been for 1,000 years. What they saw was a mirage, the town being stuck out of time like Brigadoon, and our heroes were merely visiting a vision of its past. When they try to visit the town later, it's long gone. Who created this illusion and for what purpose? Who knows? The game certainly doesn't bother to explain at all. Failing their mission to find Pharoah, our heroes decide to walk all the way back to the oasis town they camped at earlier. Surely you'll be able to fast travel there, right? Wrong. You need to trek all the way back across the desert and through the mountains. Why are you doing this to me, Tales of Vesperia developers? Who hurt you in your childhood? Back in the oasis town, our group discovers that, Cumore is back at it again with more slave labor. So once again, it's up to Bat-Yuri to take justice into his own hands. Hey Yuri, just stab him in the chest. He's wearing like the most impractical armor imaginable. Or just let him sink in quicksand, that works too. Flynn eventually catches up with our party and confronts Yuri in private, insinuating that he knows that Ragu and Cumore were murdered and not just missing. We start to understand Flynn a little bit better through this conversation. He's conflicted as he knows the law says to arrest his friend, but he also knows that if Cumore hadn't been stopped, more people would have died under the yoke of forced labor. The law says you can't take off your clothes, but I think I see a lot of lawbreakers here tonight. Flynn's faith in the Empire and its dogma is a little shaken, but he also can't tolerate Yuri's vigilante ways. Ultimately, Yuri decides to not stick around long enough for Flynn to arrest him. Now that we've gotten to know more of the characters, let's talk about the remainder of the party. Rita kind of bugs me. She's antisocial and likes to pick on Carol a lot. I get that they're supposed to have an older sister, younger brother kind of relationship, but Carol never teases Rita or does anything to warrant her scorn, which just makes her ire for him feel cruel and unnecessary. It's nice to see when she occasionally lets down her guard, but when she starts talking about Blastia, I just tune out.
Elementally separated air transitions into matter in stages and eventually becomes stable.
Raven is the Kramer of the party. Tall, goofy, unpredictable. Everyone calls him Old Man, which is weird because he's like 30. Wait, am I an old man? I do like Panera bread. Oh my god. Judith is an interesting character. She's kind of the femme fatale of the group, but the story doesn't really lean into that as often as you'd think, considering her sexy slave Leia outfit. She kind of just goes with the flow, and never really seems bothered by much. Either she's a really deep and subtle character, or a really shallow character. I haven't quite made up my mind yet. Back in Nordopolica, the party finally gets to meet up with Belius on the night of the full moon, and surprise, she's not a werewolf, but an Entelecheia, and her voice sounds dumb as f***.
I am Belius, Duce of Nordopolica, and founder of Palestrale.
Move over, Jim Cummings. We got a new star over here. Raven finally delivers his letter from the Dawn, and the letter is basically just asking her to intervene with Pharoah. Belius mentions the Great War, which I don't think we've talked about yet. 10 years prior, there was a war between the humans and the Entelecheia, with the humans coming out on top, and the Entelecheia getting almost completely wiped out of existence. But if you went to school in Florida, it was a tie. Belius also refers to Estelle as a child of the full moon, a term that Pharoah had also used to describe her. She asks what that means, and naturally, the scene is interrupted before any actual questions could be answered. Carol's old guild, the Hunting Blades, bursts in, intent on killing Belius, because killing monsters is kind of their only thing. Also, surprisingly, the Dawn's grandson, Harry, is with them for some reason. The situation just got hairier. Okay, I'll go kill myself now. Yuri and the group try to intervene, but aren't able to stop Belius from getting hurt. Estelle tries to heal the Entelecheia with her magic. Belius protests, but it's too late. Estelle's magic, for some reason, transforms Belius into a crazed state, and the group has no choice but to fight. Estelle, he had tried to save her, but accidentally made things way worse. Whoopsie daisy, Martin Scorsese. After beating Belius to a pulp, she forgives Estelle, saying she had no reason to think that her healing spell would do that. Unfortunately for us, Belius doesn't explain at all why that happened, and as she dies, we're left with even more questions than before. What is this, an episode of Lost? What, I should update that joke? Why? This game came out in 2008. Take it easy, bro. Belius's big dumb dead body transforms into an Apatheia, not unlike the one found on the ghost ship earlier. For those paying attention, that means Apatheia come from dead Entelecheia, which makes sense. Entelecheia gobble up all the air, and that air turns into a solid mass inside them, much like ambergris in a whale. So glad that whale episode of Futurama helped me learn a thing I could apply to a video 2 decades later. The Imperial Knights arrive, and our party decides to beat it before they're arrested by the Popo. Now, it's not clear yet why Harry is with the hunting blades, but one thing is for certain. The grandson of the Dawn being there when Bellius is killed is certainly going to make things awkward for Gangrist and Nordopolica's diplomatic relationship. To put things into perspective, it'd be like if Hunter Biden visited the president of New Zealand, and then the president is murdered that same day. Not a good look. I mean, technically, neither the hunting blades nor Harry killed Bellius at all, but still, it's not like wars haven't been started over misunderstandings. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Franz Ferdinand. As the brave Vesperia crew are trying to make their escape, Judith decides that this moment is the perfect time to destroy the ship's Blastia and reveal that she was the Dragon Rider all along. Why, Judith? Come on. She then flies off like, "This is who I am, deal with it." Why would she do this to the ship while they're rushing to escape the Knights? Why wouldn't she wait until they were out of harm's way at least? Why is Judith such a dumb bitch? Judith's actions may seem like a betrayal, and the other characters certainly feel that way at the time, but I'm going to skip ahead and tell you that Judith is in fact a pure girl, and not a villain. So really, her actions can just be summed up right now with WTF, IDK, my BFF Jill. The party eventually fixes the boat and gets it to Dongrist. So, because the Dawn doesn't want a full-on war to happen between Dongrist and Nordopolica, he decides the only way to atone for his stupid grandson, Harry, is to kill himself. Which, I don't know, seems a bit dramatic, but that's just me. The Dawn commits seppuku, with Yuri being his second, which apparently means to cut off his head to end his suffering after he stabbed himself. If the point of seppuku is to kill yourself, doesn't having a second dude cut off your head kind of count as cheating? If anyone's familiar with Showa-era Japanese ritualistic suicide, feel free to leave me a comment Oh. Got a bite already. Hello, I am from the Showa era and stumbled into the future through a portal in time, Samurai Jack style. That's cool. Rice to meet you, lol. With the Dawn dead, Nordopolica has their blood atonement for Bellius' death, and life moves on. Except for these two. Our party travels to Mount Temsa to look for Pharoah when they come across Judith. Traitor! She then explains that she's been destroying Blastia because they create an overabundance of air that can destroy the world, like automobiles and other human influences creating pollution that destroys the ozone. She could have explained this simple concept at the start of the game, but, whoops, lulz. I get not expecting society to understand. I mean, once we found out that fossil fuels are bad for the planet, we didn't just stop using them. But who was Judy to decide she'd just destroy Blastia without telling anyone? Who made her Judge Judy? Objection, overruled. But the brave Vesperia crew are a pretty understanding group, even letting Raven and Patty join just cuz. So you'd think they'd accept Judith's story without hesitation, and that is in fact what happens. So the whole drama with Judy being the Dragon Rider and destroying the Blastia secretly really just comes off like dumb sitcom logic, where there's a hilarious misunderstanding that could easily be solved with a short conversation, and you watch it and think, there's no way anybody could be this freaking gosh dang freaking dumb in real life. Just then, because it's convenient for the plot, Judith's dragon, Baul, starts to undergo a Pokemon evolution into his second, more powerful form. He's now way bigger. Like, you could practically attach the boat to this dragon and have him fly you around kind of big. Oh, wait, we're actually gonna do that? Alright, looks like we're flying now. Now that you could fly, you're probably super excited to explore the massive world of Turkalimuris. Well, sad news, friends. This world is emptier than my bank account, patreon.com/wesisdoingthings. And what little there is to see is stretched across a giant empty map. I mean, this continent has, like, one place for you to visit. This continent has 2 places. They don't even have a flippin' IKEA in Tolbekia, and that's supposed to be the good continent. Not to keep making comparisons to Symphonia, but that game had a great world map, and it had these cool little skits that were hidden throughout in weird, hard-to-reach places. These skits served as a reward and motivated exploration of the map. In Vesperia, there's really no reason to explore anything because most of the world is empty of anything exciting or interesting. This place freaking sucks. There's also one glaringly wrong thing with the map that I can't ignore or chalk up to artistic choice. Several times in the game, the story will tell you that your next location is in a specific place on a specific continent, like head to the lakeside town in Dressier. Well, I don't know which continent Dressier is, so I'll take a look at the map and... Want to guess what's missing here? Yuri and friends fly their little booties over to the desert where they were originally looking for Pharoah. Looks like his lair is only accessible now that you could fly, so why the hell did we spend hours earlier trekking through the mountains and desert and backtracking on a mission that was ultimately impossible?
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
We finally get to speak to Pharoah, and he explains that Estelle's powers are dangerous because they create an overabundance of air. Again, that's air with an E. And as we mentioned a while ago, too much air is toxic. We know that Entelekea eat air, but apparently too much of it can make them lose their minds. So when Estelle was using her healing magic on Belius earlier, she was really poisoning her mind with too much air and making her turn into a feral beast. Yeah, this plotline is stupid, especially considering other characters like Raven and Flynn can use healing spells too, but whatever. At least we have some sense of what's going on, finally. Not long after, Raven and Estelle sneak off, and the party is unable to find them for a while. Their search somehow leads them to Yormgen. Don't ask me why. This is where the biggest heel turn in the story happens. The big reveal, which is also the least deserved and nonsensical twist in the entire game, Alexei, and an Imperial Commandant and Flynn's direct superior, was behind it all along. Dumb. This is dumb. Behind what, you might ask? Well, that's not totally clear. He mentions using people like Barbos and Ragu. He doesn't say to what end, but they were stealing Blastia, so I guess his big crime is stealing Blastia. He also says Estelle is at a place called the Shrine of Bactian right now. So presumably, if he knows where she is, he must have kidnapped her and used Raven to do it. This is all an assumption on the player's part because there is very little explanation to what he says and how our party responds to it. This was the dumbest, most poorly written reveal in the entire story. Alexei had only even been introduced like once or twice briefly before this. Are we supposed to know who this guy is? Is this supposed to be like some big shocking moment or something? This is a really important moment of the story, and the writers fumbled it hard. The party goes to the Shrine of Bactian, which is easily the most uncreative dungeon in any RPG I've ever played, and that's including Ragu's murder basement from earlier. Among these big, empty, identical rooms are these lantern-looking things that light up for a few seconds if you shoot them with the Philosopher's Ring. I thought, hey, cool, finally a puzzle. Do I need to light them in a certain order, or light them and get to the next room before they go out or something like that? No, they do nothing. They're just decoration. They do absolutely nothing at all. This feels like when I spent all my money on those wellness bracelets. What do you mean this doesn't actually balance my chi? At the end of the dungeon, you'll face Raven, who was really Captain Schwan all along. Don't know who Captain Schwan is? I don't either, because I genuinely think the writers of the game thought that they had included a scene talking about him and then forgot to include it. This leads to a boss fight where he could use swords now?
They fly now?
I'm really not a big fan of RPG fights where you have to fight a former ally and they magically have way more health and new abilities, and once you inevitably get them back into your party, they're underpowered again. While Alexei makes his escape, the shrine begins to crumble from all the sick-ass fighting that's been happening, and Schwan, holds back the debris, giving his life to ensure everyone else escapes. What is this cliche of the bad guy helping the good guy in their moment of death? What was the point of the double cross? And afterwards, everyone's attitude becomes, oh, he was such a hero, he saved all of our lives. Bitch, he was just trying to kill all of you and bought time for Alexei to escape. Next, Alexei makes his way to Heracles, aka Hell's Moving Asshole Part 2, where, surprise, Raven is back and somehow magically healed. There is literally no weight to his death fake out because he's shown to be fine in the very next scene. This is like killing off Chewbacca, and then within 5 minutes going, nah, dog, we lied. We lied. Also, how the hell did he get out of the temple ruins, heal his injuries, and then get to Heracles before Yuri and his friends arrived? If Raven could apparently use a sword and has magical healing and super speed, why can't we use that when we play as him, huh? Raven explains that he used to serve under Alexei in the Great War, and after receiving a fatal wound, was brought back to life by Alexei with an artificial Blastia heart. Since then, he served Alexei out of fear that the Commandant could deactivate the Blastia and kill Raven at any given time. The party is reluctant to let Raven back in, so everyone takes turns slapping the shit out of him. As you explore Heracles, you'll discover a running theme in Tales games, where for some reason in the third act, when the story starts to pick up speed, the characters repeatedly ponder a new little story beat, only for one of them to say, "There's no time, we could figure that out later."
I feel bad for doing this to Flynn, but we really need to get going.
Hate having to repeat myself. We've got no time for you, so take a walk.
Hey, there's no time to relax!
The party searches Heracles high and low, but it looks like Alexei was never on board, so that was a waste of time. In actuality, he's back in Yuri's hometown of Zaphias. He's manipulated Estelle's powers, causing her to create a force field of pure air, that's air with an E, over the city. This force field is enough to keep out the Entelecheia, and thus the party needs to find an alternate route back into the city. Our group traverses some snowy terrain to sneak into Zaphias from the back. You'll enter Zaphias Castle again, where you first met Estelle. It's a grim pilgrimage because Yuri knows that Estelle's powers are clearly being used for evil, and it likely will come to them needing to kill her for the safety of the world. The inevitable fight against Estelle is pretty easy, but then it inexplicably changes to just Yuri fighting her. I get that the storyline was telling us Yuri would have to be the one to kill her, but then to really get that concept through, they should have made her have like 1 HP, so you actually feel sorry about finishing her off. Instead, they made your party's healer, who's not much for combat, super OP, and she can literally one-hit kill Yuri, so I spent the majority of the match running away from her and spamming Demon Fangs and Lemon Gels. Stay away! Yuri is able to break Estelle out of her crazed state without killing her, how convenient, but not before Alexei uses Estelle's powers to resurrect Zade, an ancient underwater fortress which will be crucial for his evil plans. Next, we're told to go to Zade, which is in the southern Tolbikian shores. Time to look at that map. Oh, that's right, the world map doesn't say the names of the continents and is absolutely useless. Guess I'll fly around aimlessly till I find it. At the top of Zade, you'll fight Alexei, and I gotta tell you, this was one of the most difficult boss fights ever. He has an infuriating instant kill mystic art that he spams every 5 minutes, so it almost doesn't matter what level you're at, you're gonna die a lot. But defeating him was oh so satisfying. Alexei is beat, but not before he's able to get one last pot shot at Yuri. Fortunately, Flynn saves him with a whole no slow-mo diving in front of the bullet to save his friend move. Alexei then activates Zade's Blastia, which he believes to be some sort of death ray he could use to attack nations. Instead, in a surprising twist, the Blastia is a giant barrier that's surrounding the entire planet. Activating it turns off the barrier, and wouldn't you know it, out from the heavens comes the Adephagos, an unspeakable eldritch horror. So just to give a little detail here, the Adephagos basically represents judgment and the preservation of the planet. If humans are abusing the air, that's air with an E, the Adephagos comes to wipe out humanity to prevent the planet's destruction. Now, children of the full moon, like Estelle, are people born with the ability to use air without a Blastia. That's why Pharoah thought Estelle was an abomination. But apparently, the children of the full moon in the past would sacrifice their lives to the altar of Zade, giving their energy to the barrier Blastia, which kept Adephagos out. Thus, Zade looking like a giant wedding ring. It represents the commitment they had to preserving humanity and the love they demonstrated by giving up their lives for the greater good. This is all poorly explained in the game, so, you know, you're welcome. This is the moment Alexei realizes he done goofed, so he allows himself to die as Zade is collapsing. Just when things couldn't possibly get worse, Sodia, Flynn's subordinate, who's clearly in love with him, who I've not mentioned in this video yet because she freaking sucks, decides now would be a great time to stab Yuri in the heart. Sodia is the worst. Her actions make no sense whatsoever. It's such an unnecessary thing to add here. I get her being protective of Flynn, but Yuri certainly didn't make Flynn take the bullet for him. Anyways, Sodia sucks. For the sake of time and my sanity, I'm gonna skip a few subplots here. Basically, Yuri wakes up. He was saved by Duke, of all people, but only because he was trying to save Yuri's sick-ass sword. The group reunites after Rita decides that she's going to figure out how to solve the problem of too much air in the atmosphere. Hey everybody, Rita Thunberg is gonna solve the problem of global airing over here. She does some formula mumbo-jumbo trying to find a way to control Estelle's powers using Bellius's Apatheia. Every time Rita talks about Blastia and Apatheia, it's always nonsense. At first I thought, maybe I just need to understand the lore of the game more before it makes sense. But 50 hours in, I'm fairly certain it's just Donald Trump word salad.
My plan is to efficiently convert the air into matter, decreasing the overall amount of air. But for that, it's ideal to have the converter use energy similar to both air and matter.
This leads to a weird Dance Dance Revolution-esque minigame where Rita tries to do some magic shit. Don't ask me to explain it because I can't. If we don't do this right, then Estelle will freaking die. Rita's experiments, to everyone's surprise, create something totally unexpected. Bellius is reincarnated as a brand new creature, an elemental spirit. For anyone familiar with the Tales or Final Fantasy series, you've probably guessed what her name will be.
The splishy splashy watercolored queen!
That's our Carol. The spirit of water, Undine, is so thankful for her new life that she's like, thanks, here's a bunch of items and weapons that I somehow have even though I was just born. So, through some convoluted logic, Rita has found a way to turn Apatheia into elemental spirits, and for some reason, these spirits should be able to defeat the Adephagos. So, we're searching for elemental summons now? Isn't it a little late in the game for this? Well, let's make this quick. The party visits Pharoah again, and that asshole bird finally does something useful for once and kills himself so he could be reborn as a spirit. Now he's known as Efreet, the fire spirit. The remaining Antilocheia turn into Gnome, the earth spirit, and Sylph, the wind spirit. Seems weird that light and darkness don't get a chance to be reborn. Maybe one of them was the Apatheia Duke broke earlier. If so, that certainly sucks for that Antilocheia. Wait, I could be reincarnated! With the elemental spirits summoned, surely our team has all they need to defeat the Adephagos, right? Wrong. To stop a beast of that size, they'll need to also convert all the Blastias of the world into spirits. But that would require cooperation from pretty much the rest of society. So, good luck with that. Hey, you remember that ancient city that was magically brought up from the ocean earlier? Well, here's another magical city raising up from the ground. The Tower of Tercaron, the QAnon, is the final dungeon area, and it totally destroys the city of Aspio as it rises up. So any side quests or items you'd get from Aspio get locked out at this point. What do you mean I can't buy the girl swimsuits for the hot spring side quest anymore? What has all this been for? Our party meets back up with Flynn, and together they assemble all the world's leaders we've met throughout the game. They explain the situation and come to an agreement that all the Blastia cores will be sacrificed for a chance at beating the Adephagos. It's a big sacrifice. I mean, no Blastia means no more modern amenities. It'll be a world without barriers to guard the cities from monsters, electricity to light up people's homes, and energy to charge Rita's vibrator. But it's either that or everyone is swallowed up by an ancient calamity, so Flynn and Yuri finally get to have another one-on-one. Flynn's seen the full extent of the Empire's corruption by this point, and he's finally made peace with Yuri's vigilantism. Yuri encourages him, saying that the upcoming new world will be a better place with people like Flynn, people who care about law and order and are incorruptible. It's really nice seeing these two friends come to a better understanding of each other, and it's quite possibly the only satisfying story arc in the game. Our party climbs the Tower of Tarkagon and faces off against Duke, who apparently is now filling the role of final boss despite Yuri and friends having very little thematic or emotional connection to his character. Oh well. Maybe it'll be more interesting with a little backstory. So we learn that Duke used to be a prominent hero in the Great War, and that some Entelecheia even aided his fight against other Entelecheia. When the war was won, humans were distrustful of the ancient beasts, and they murdered Duke's Entelecheia friend. This made Duke lose faith in humanity. He hasn't gone full-on, let's destroy the world kind of evil yet. He does want to save the world from, the Adephagos. But he is fine with sacrificing humanity to achieve that. Kind of a strange goal. I mean, is an empty, lifeless planet even worth saving? The game makes Duke out to be this wise, stoic figure, but personally, I think he's kinda dumb. The final battle with Duke is pretty hard, but not Alexei instant kill move hard. He of course has the second form like any true RPG boss, and if you've collected a bunch of secret items in a certain side quest, he'll have a third ultimate form. Duke is defeated, and Yuri and the rest use the magical power attained from all the world's Blastias and the elemental spirits to send one giant attack on the Adephagos. If somehow harnessing this power sounds vague and like it doesn't stand up to any logical scrutiny, let it go, because we're in the last 5 minutes here. Duke has a change of heart. Really, it's more of a, fine, I'll help, and he tosses in his powers too. The Adephagos is defeated, and the world will keep on spinning, just without any technology or magic. The credits roll. There's no further scenes, which is just incredibly anticlimactic. There are sketches during the credits that give a little bit of closure, though. Well, not so much closure, but like little vignettes, like Rita continuing her experiments, Yuri returning to the lower quarter, and Duke being a friend to squirrels. Seriously, this is how the game ends.
Squeaky, squeaker, squeaking. Jaguars. No kidding. Brutal.
I think the biggest issue with Vesperia's dirty diaper blowout of the story is not all the random crap shoehorned into it, like the elemental spirit subplot or this German guy.
I think we better be making the escape, yeah?
The real issue with the story is that it has no focus at all. Vesperia is like a kid with ADD, or ADHD, or 4K with even better resolution. The first act focuses on Yuri being a freedom fighter and vigilante in a corrupt world. The second act is about Estelle having this healing superpower that is also damaging the world for some reason. And the third act becomes your typical stop the ancient evil from destroying the planet kind of thing. You know, the holy trinity of story structure. It'd be nice if we had seen Duke way earlier in the story, or if the game had spent more time making parallels between Duke and Yuri, and how they both see themselves as martyrs for justice. Maybe they could have leaned into that angle and done something interesting with it, but sadly, the game decides to spend dozens of hours on this guild drama that just doesn't matter at all. I really enjoyed Tales of Vesperia, because I think the characters and gameplay mechanics kept things engaging. This is a fun game to play, but it has the worst story in any RPG I've ever played, bar none. Yes, even worse than Fire Emblem Engage, and that story is about anime Cruella de Vil trying to collect a bunch of rings like some sort of slow human version of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Manhog. I regret saying Manhog. And it's a shame because this game has so many good things going for it. It was a world I didn't want to leave, and if the story were even a little bit better, I would have stuck around for all the post-game content. Unfortunately, while I don't regret my time playing Tales of Vesperia, it wasn't really as engrossing as I wanted it to be. Now, here's the segment where I roast my followers for having the audacity of liking my channel. If you want me to roast you in my next video, join my Discord and message me for instructions. I could also give you a compliment instead, but everyone I surveyed for this video wanted a roast, so here you go, you masochists. Casual elitist, you suck. The doctor that delivered you should get the shit slapped out of him and sued for medical malpractice. Boom, roasted. Jacqueline Frost 93. Nice glasses, do they come in women's sizes? No, they don't, because you're wearing men's glasses, and it matches your man's face. Boom, roasted. Leonardo 24. Your profile picture is Master Chief, which tells me that you were 12 years old in 2006 and have yet to feel a woman's touch. Boom, roasted. Jilly Mace here. Skies of Arcadia is never gonna get a sequel, and you need to accept it. You're so stuck in the past, Disney's gonna make a live-action version of you. Does that make sense? Probably not, but let's move on anyways. Boom, roasted. Floris Hilton. You suck more than Paris Hilton, but nobody would want to make a video about you. Boom, roasted. Rockman Mega X. You remind me a lot of Mega Man, actually. And by that, I mean your creator doesn't want anything to do with you anymore. Boom roasted. Dobadabadabadoo. More like, poo 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 poo. Boom roasted. I'd also like to give a special and sincere shout out to Jilly Mays, my first Patreon patron. I know I roasted you a moment ago, but seriously, you're cool. YouTubing could be a hard job, and to have somebody basically say, I'm investing in you because I like your content, that's seriously such an encouragement, so thank you, Jill. Thanks also to Matt Flynn for being my first YouTube channel member, which is also something I'd encourage you all to join. Though, to be honest, between Patreon and YouTube memberships, Patreon doesn't take as big of a percentage as YouTube does, so hey Matt, maybe sign up for my Patreon instead. Whoops, am I allowed to say that? Just kidding, but seriously, sign up for my Patreon instead. If you want to see more lengthy retrospectives like this one, like and subscribe to West Does Games. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.